Every night, I'd say to myself, not gonna fucking drink tonight. I'd say, yeah, not tonight. But as soon as 3 o'clock hit, fucking that time, found myself drink in my hand, fucking disappointment in my heart. And I was just stuck in the fucking cycle. I hated the cycle. I was just stuck. You know, I hated how it made me feel. I hated what it made me do. And ultimately, I hated everything about it. But still, I was fucking just stuck. And, have you ever woken up feeling hungover, full of regret, swearing never again? Never again, you'd say to yourself, fucking never again. And do it again and again and again. And over and over and over again. Well, this is a fucking video for you. I'm talking to you now. Because in this video, I want to talk about the cycle and exactly what you can do to stop your drinking, what you can do to break out of that cycle and start to fucking live a life where you're actually living, not just existing just to fucking drink. Because I did it. I've been in recovery for many years now. And recovery isn't about being sober for an X amount of time. Recovery is not needing to drink. Because that's freedom. That's when you're free. So I want to talk about freedom today. I want to talk about how you can finally become free, not about how you can stop drinking, because I think you're asking the wrong question if you're trying to stop drinking, because you're going to start living and start building a life where you want to stop, and you will stop ultimately. Let's talk about why you can't stop right now. Because for me, I was never drinking for fun. I was never drinking, for a good time. I was never drinking to feel good or anything. I was just drinking because it was a way that I could deal with the pressure. It was the pressure of my job, a way that I could, get through my day, a way that I could silence the fucking thoughts in my head. Because ultimately, you're not addicted to alcohol. You're addicted to what alcohol does for you. And you might be, might say, oh, bullshit, oh, blah, blah, blah. And we talk about physical addiction. But, physical addiction to alcohol and actually being addicted to alcohol are two different things. You may be physiologically addicted. So, when I say that you're not addicted, what you're actually addicted to is the escape. You're addicted to, I don't know. Anyhow, I just want to talk about how drinking becomes a ritual in your life rather than the celebration, rather than the fun thing that you do. It just becomes part of your life because you don't crave the alcohol. You crave the peace. You crave the escape. You crave the relief. Fucking that relief. Oh, when that first can opens and it goes down your throat, that feeling, you know it. If you're anything like me, you know that just that instant fucking relief that your skin's crawling for the whole day. The only thing that you can think of is just that first sip, that the first guzzle, and then all the fucking problems just disappear until they don't. And then then you crave the disconnection. But ultimately, our alcohol in itself gives you short-term relief. Yes, it does. Short-term relief. But ultimately creates long-term suffering. I fucking know because I lived that fucking cycle for years, 20 plus years. Some of the suffering that it caused me, relationship problems, physical problems, mental problems, spiritual problems, emotional problems, directly related to alcohol. And if you have a life that has, alcohol, firmly ingrained in your life, you will have problems firmly related to alcohol. That's just part and parcel of the journey. You can't live a life with alcohol in it in a significant way and have a peaceful, happy life. Because alcohol isn't about pleasure when you drink like I did. It was about pain relief. And when we say pain, it's not just physical pain. It's the pain of regret, the pain of disappointment, the pain of fucking not living the way that you should be, the pain of not being the man that you should be, the pain of not being the father that you should be, the pain. And then we talk about shame. And shame's part of that pain, because we can get stuck in the shame loop. And what does that shame loop look like? First of all, it's a cycle. So we feel guilty. So what do? We drink. And then when we drink, we regret that we drink. And then we feel shame again. And then we drink again. And I used to get stuck in that over and over and over again. I'd lie to myself over and over and over again. Just one. Hide the bottle. But, everyone knows. Your wife knows. Your kids know. Your family know. But you feel trapped. Shame doesn't help you quit, though. Because it makes you drink more. But I want to talk about it. Let's have a chat. Because you don't hate yourself. Even though you might feel that you do. Because I know that when I was drinking, I felt like I did. But you hate the man that you become when you drink. And the way that you can start to love yourself again, and when I say love yourself, it's not like love yourself and all that bullshit. It's just about being happy with who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. But the way that you can start to be comfortable and happy with yourself, start to be at peace with yourself, is to stop fucking drinking. And then when you start to feel proud of yourself again, when it might be a big fucking stretch to go from hating yourself to, feeling like you hate yourself, to loving yourself, to being proud of yourself. But this is the journey that you'll go on in sobriety. First of all, you're like fucking struggling and stop. You're struggling to go through the journey. You're struggling. Then you get to the point where you think, oh yeah, well, I'm starting to do this shit. Then you start to do the shit. And then you start to feel a little bit better about yourself. And then you start to feel happier with yourself. And then you start to feel a bit proud of yourself. And then you start to feel comfortable. And then you start to become at peace. You don't just wake up at peace one day. It's a journey. But what's the alternative when you think about it? The alternative is fucking just what you've already got, but, worse. So let's talk about willpower. Because we say, oh, well, you just need more willpower. But willpower is never going to get you sober. It'll be enough for a few days, for a few weeks. And when I've gone to rehab and all that, and then I hadn't really shifted my identity, willpower was the thing that was keeping me sober at that time. So you could white knuckle it. I could white knuckle it for a little bit, but then I'd crack. Because I was a man that still drank. I was just having a break. I was a man that, hadn't really shifted my identity. Because willpower really is a short term. And long term, you need to change your identity. You want to say, I don't drink, because that's where you've changed your identity, rather than saying I'm trying to quit. Because if you're trying to quit, that leaves the door open. So just as an exercise that you can do to start to think about changing your identity to someone who doesn't need to drink or doesn't want to drink or isn't a drinker, write down who you are, who you were, and who you're becoming. Who you are, who you were, and who you're becoming. And do it in 3 lines. And then slowly start to visualize you becoming that person. Start to live your life through the person that you're becoming. And see that there's a transition. See that you can change. Because who you were and who you are, you've already seen that there's a change. But then there's another change because who you're becoming. Because there's always a new level that you can go to. There's always something different that you can do, and there's always someone else that you can be. Even if you've done the same thing for 150 years. I'd like to say that we live for 150 years, but who knows? On year 151, we can be someone new if we choose. And that's okay. And you need to start to think about rewiring your triggers, because my trigger used to be 3 o'clock, bang, on the clock, bang, 3 o'clock, time to go. And it was a danger hour, danger. But you need to have a plan, a trigger plan, where you can put it in place so you know your time where you ritualize your drinking, where your drinking is going to happen at a certain point, whether it's lunchtime, breakfast, whatever. What you need to do is you need to put things in place to make it harder for you to do that, whether it's movement, going to the gym, going for a swim, going for a walk, music, changing your mood, changing your state, having a Brotherhood check-in, because cravings are just emotional habits that you have, and you don't relapse out of nowhere because you're following a pattern. Relapse is, it's a pattern that will happen over and over and over again. So you can see a relapse happen before it's happened. You can see it happening. You can know that it's coming. But what you can do is you can put things in place to mitigate the risk, mitigate the problems, and mitigate the life that you don't want to live. Because you must replace the habit that you're trying to break. Not just remove it, and create new rituals, new things, because you want to create a kill the craving plan where you can have 3 steps: move your body, change your environment, and call a brother. These things that you can put in place so that you've got a strategy. It's about having a strategy when shit goes down that you can go bang. It's not about you overthinking and not about you having a willpower. It's about you having a written plan, or a plan that you know that, bang, this is what's going to happen. I used to say to myself, like, one of the things that really worked for me initially is I used to say I could have a drink if I did something really hard, which was, go for a big walk. And by the time that I did the big walk, I didn't want to drink. And that was one thing that I put in place. So if you've got a clear strategy, so you're not saying, initially you need to have things like this in place. So you could put things in place where you go, well, I can have a drink if I do X. I can have a drink if I do something. And then when you do that, it just changes your state, or changes you enough, or gives you enough break for you to go, oh, okay, well, that was in. Because cravings and signals to your body that you need a drink are short term. And then, you can either work around them, work through them, or have a plan to get through them. And then you get to a point where you can change, where it changed. And I want to talk about the moment where it switched for me. Because one day I just looked in the mirror and I said, I'm not the man that I want to be. And I don't know who I am, but who I am right now is not good enough. I didn't know how to stop drinking. I didn't know what to fucking do. All I knew is that I couldn't be the person that I was anymore. I couldn't let my family down anymore, so I had to fucking change, and I had to find a way. And I'd like to say that from that moment on, everything was rainbows, but it wasn't. It was life. That's why it's important to have a brotherhood. That's why it's important to have a team. That's why it's important to have support, whatever that support looks like for you. Because there's going to be times where it's going to be fucking tough. But your desire to be the better man, your desire to fucking rise up will be stronger than your desire to get pissed. And that's what you have to be. And it's about really finding your why. Because your why will become bigger than your craving if it's big enough. Because you have to decide. You have to make a decision. You have to burn the boats. Cut off from any possibility of going back to the old life, because there's no back door. Once you step into the life of fucking freedom, once you step in, once you rise up to fucking be a legend, to be a warrior, to be fucking sober. You don't want to go back. Ask yourself, who are you going to build your life for? You know, whose trust can you win back with the fucking different decisions, different choices? These are the things that you need to ask yourself, because your why is going to be the fuel to drive the boat when things get rough. That's why I developed the Sober Switch system. You know, I talk about it all the time, and it's a system that basically it's just a new system of support, a new system that we can have a real clear structure about how we're getting sober, how we're getting through these challenges, because it's what's worked for me. It's what I use for, you know, how I keep my life on track. We've got the kill switch protocol, the warrior identity system, the brotherhood effect, and the leadership stack. And what are they? Basically, we rewire your beliefs, replace your rituals, become the man who doesn't drink. We have support and daily accountability. And then we have morning and evening rituals for self-mastery. Because I want to talk to you about, let's have a chat. If you keep saying tomorrow, it'll become next year. And next year might not be here if you keep drinking, because you're not broken. You're just stuck in a loop that you're never taught how to escape. And I know it can be scary because, you know, I've lived that life, 20 plus years, drinking a litre of bourbon a day, which is, I don't know, a big massive bottle. Every fucking day, getting smashed out of my fucking tiny mind to the point of blacking out drunk every night to wake up, go to work and fucking live the nightmare day after day after day, hoping for a new life. But the truth is, you can only create a new life by putting down the drink, making a clear decision to change your life, do something different, and stop drinking. And that's what the Kick the Piss is all about. It's about giving you a clear path, a clear way to stop drinking without all the bullshit, without talking about your feelings, without fucking sitting around singing songs like fucking Pixies and fucking all that sort of stuff. It's about getting clear, getting a clear plan, clear structure, and actually just doing the fucking system. Bang. You know, it's about, as men, we just want to be told what the fuck to do. That's why I created it. It's not about, you know, there's a place for therapy and there's a place for feelings and there's a place for all that. But there's also a place for just do this and you'll get this result. There's do this and you'll stop drinking. And that's what Kick the Piss is about. It's about doing the work, being the man, and just fucking putting your big girl panties on, fucking going through the struggle. And if I can help you get sober, there's a link down below that you can have a look. And we can work out how I can help you and how I can get you to the promised land of sobriety. But it doesn't matter what I do, because this will be about you doing the work. I'll show you the path. I'll walk with you. I'll hold your hand. I'll push you. I'll guide you. But I'll never be able to do it for you. It's about you looking in the mirror and saying, today I'm going to be somebody different. Today I'm going to be the man that I always wanted to be. And then fucking doing the work to be that man. Because you don't need a rehab. You don't need shame. You need a fucking system. And you need a reason. And you need to become a man that doesn't need to drink anymore. Because you're finally free. So I personally invite you to have a chat with me where we can work together and set you free from this bullshit. Set you free from the nightmare because there is another way. And whether you find it with me or with somebody else, I pray for you that you find the answer, what you're looking for, because once you get sober, you'll realize, like I did, that life is so much better when you're not fucking handcuffed to a bottle. Kickthepiss.com